The race for AI dominance, it's just chaotic, right? It's so easy to get lost in all the noise. But what if I told you there's a really simple way to see who actually holds the power? Well, in this explainer, we're going to slice into AI strategy with a framework that shows us who really wins, and more importantly, why.
And this is the tool we're going to use, the AI 5-layer cake. It's a really powerful model that helps us cut through all the hype and see the industry's hidden structure. And here's the thing, not all layers of this cake are created equal. You'll see that the rules for winning are completely different depending on whether you're at the top or at the very bottom.
So this cake, it basically organizes the entire AI stack nice and neat. Down at the bottom, you've got the real foundation, the raw energy needed to power everything, and of course the advanced chips that do all the heavy lifting. Moving up, we get to infrastructure. Think cloud, data centers, that kind of thing. Above that, you've got the models themselves, the brains like ChatGPT. And then right at the very top, that's where we are, the applications we all use every day. Getting a grip on this flow, well, that's the key to the whole strategy.
All right, so here's the plan. First, we're going to decode the cake's layers and their kind of weird, unique rules. Then I've got this wild $2 billion story that just proves the point perfectly. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the big strategic choice this all points to.
Okay, let's dive right in at the foundation with the chip layer. Now this part of the cake, it plays by a completely different set of rules. We're talking a brutal, winner-take-all logic that you just don't see anywhere else in AI.
And being dominant here, it's not just about being good at making chips. No, it's about controlling these things called key nodes. Think of them like technological checkpoints that are just almost impossible for anyone else to get to once a leader's in place.
So what makes a key node a key node? Well, it's got 3 big traits. First, the clock is ticking, and you can't turn it back. The first company to master a new process, say 3-nanometer chips, they get to lock in all the biggest customers. Second, the cost. It doesn't just go up, it jumps exponentially. And third, everything is so deeply connected. The software, the equipment, the talent, it creates this closed loop that's just incredibly hard to break into.
And just look at the scale of that money barrier. We are talking $20 to $30 billion for one advanced factory. This is just not a game most companies, or heck, even most countries can afford to play. What this does is create this massive, powerful, and long-lasting moat for the leaders like a TSMC. It's not just some small advantage, it's baked into the structure of this layer. If you're not first and you're not the best, you're pretty much out of the game, period.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That old brutal winner-take-all thing, it completely falls apart as soon as we start moving up the cake. In the upper layers, believe me, the rules of the game change completely.
Take infrastructure, for example. Data centers, cloud computing. The big challenge here isn't some impossible physics problem like it is with chips. It's more of an engineering and governance problem. The real question is, can you run massive-scale computing in a stable, cheap way for a long time? Look, it's hard, for sure, but it's not impossible for someone else to catch up. And you see the exact same thing with the AI models themselves, right? So a company like OpenAI might have the top model today, but that lead? It's usually pretty temporary. If you look at the history, these performance gaps tend to close up within a year or two. So the real long-term prize isn't just about being the best right now, it's about becoming the API standard that everybody else has to build on. And then, finally, all the way at the top, you've got the applications. And up here, success has almost nothing to do with having some unbeatable piece of technology. Nope, it's all about finding the best market fit, getting people to actually use your stuff, and figuring out how to navigate all those complex social and regulatory hurdles. So, for these top 3 layers, infrastructure, models, and apps, the game is just different. It stops being a raw tech race. Instead, it becomes a competition built on things like governance, stability, and most importantly, trust. The winner isn't the one with the best tech today, it's the one who can offer the least amount of uncertainty for tomorrow.
Okay, I know this idea of trust and low uncertainty can sound a little abstract, so let's make it super concrete. I want to tell you a pretty dramatic story about an AI company called Manus that proves this point perfectly.
And it brings up this really fascinating question, right? How does a company's value multiply by over 60 times in just 1 year? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't some huge new tech breakthrough. It was something else, something completely different.
Just check out this timeline. First, they get a $30 million acquisition offer.
Okay? Then they make one simple move. They relocate their legal headquarters to Singapore. And then, boom, they get acquired for $2 billion. The answer wasn't in their tech, it was in their address. Their value just exploded the second they moved into a different governance system.
So what on earth was Meta paying $2 billion for? Well, they weren't just buying an AI model. They were buying certainty. They were buying a de-risked global asset, something that was made safe and predictable because of Singapore's super trusted legal and regulatory environment.
This whole story really highlights a critical choice that countries and economies, especially places like Taiwan, have to make. How do you compete and win in the age of AI? It's clearly not just about technology anymore. It's about national strategy. And right now, we can see two totally different paths emerging. On one hand, you have what you could call the Korean model. That's all about doubling down on the bottom layers of the cake, pouring massive amounts of cash into hardware and infrastructure. But then you have the Singaporean model, which focuses on the upper layers by creating that environment of stability and trust we've been talking about.
And this really gets to the heart of the strategic insight for those upper layers. When your tech advantage is only temporary, well then stability actually becomes more valuable than raw power. The winner is whoever can provide the least amount of uncertainty.
So the argument goes something like this. Maybe the smartest play isn't to try and build the next billion-dollar AI model yourself. Maybe the smarter play is to become the place where the world's best AI companies want to set up shop, where they want to grow, and where they know they'll be valued fairly on the global market.
All right, let's bring this all home. What's the big takeaway from our tour of the AI cake? What does it all mean for strategy?
Okay, so what we've seen is that this AI cake isn't just one thing. It's got these very distinct layers, and each one has its own set of rules. Down at the bottom, the chip layer is a brutal game of money and physics. But up top, it's a much more subtle game of trust and governance. And to win up there, you need a totally different playbook.
And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. As AI continues to reshape our world, what's a nation's most valuable asset going to be? Is it the silicon it can build? Or is it the systems of trust it can create?